Welcome back. You're watching ED Inside. Allegations of usurious lendings have meant that the government has turned to regulations to rein in predatory practices. The new set of rules introduced by the Reserve Bank of India will go a long way in regulating the sector and reducing the cost of capital. But they don't cover MFIs of all shapes and sizes. Swati D'Souza has more on the good and bad of the regulatory norms.
320 million Indians live below the poverty line, and each one of them has several financial needs. It's not easy for microlenders to service these poor and run a for-profit business simultaneously. And things haven't quite turned out as the industry planned. Today, MFIs, which are considered the messiah of the poor, are viewed as predatory and usurious money lenders. There's no doubt that the customer needs to be protected and the sector needs to change for the better. And in the first week of December, the RBI stepped in to do just that. It released a new set of guidelines, creating a new set of category of non-banking finance companies called NBFC MFIs.
The RBI is now clearly defining certain outer limits for three things which has been held as the most serious charges against MFIs, which is one is lending at very high rates, second is lending beyond the ability of the client to repay, and third is coercive recovery practice.
The RBI has defined non-banking MFIs as non-deposit taking institutions with minimum net owned funds of 5 crore rupees, having 85% of their total assets in qualifying assets. It defines qualifying assets as loans of less than 35,000 to 50,000 rupees extended to rural families with annual household incomes of less than 60,000 rupees and urban families with household incomes of less than 1,20,000 rupees. It has also said that NBFC MFIs need to have a 15% capital adequacy ratio. Only those MFIs who have exposures of over 25% of their loan portfolio in Andhra Pradesh can maintain a capital adequacy ratio of 12% in the current year. Apart from this, it has capped lending rates and margins.
The RBI has approved lending rates up to 26% with a 12% cap on margin. So 12% cap on margin, even if you take a 2% provisioning requirement, which is low given what's happened, still everything has to be managed within 10% operating costs. And that means most MFIs will have to be far more efficient than they have been so far.
But the RBI regulations apply to just those MFIs that are registered as for-profit Section 25 companies, which account for 34% of the outstanding loans of the sector. Self-help groups account for more than half the outstanding loans of the sector, and the balance is contributed by societies and trusts.
The RBI circular only covers the NBFC MFIs, and there are a lot of other institutions, a lot of other microfinance institutions that are operating not as NBFCs but as societies or trusts or Section 25 not-for-profit companies. They're all doing great work, but they're all impacted by not having a credible status and having too many different regulators trying to govern their work. And so having a common microfinance bill that will oversee the activities of all of these different kinds of institutions will be very, very useful.
The microfinance bill proposes to empower the RBI to issue directions on margin caps, loans, processing fees, etc. It makes it mandatory for every MFI, including the existing ones, to register with the RBI within 3 months of the commencement of the Act. It states that any institution with a minimum level of capital or net owned fund of 5 lakh rupees should be registered with the RBI, and larger MFIs will have to register under the Companies Act. And last but not the least is the fact that the RBI will have complete power to ask MFIs to cease activities and cancel registrations if required.
I think it's going to bring a lot of clarity on several issues which have still been ambiguous in this particular sector. And I think, once we have a bill present and passed through the legislative process and also a regulation from the RBI, I think it will create the foundations of a much more robust, a much more, steady and much more solid sort of growth path and growth trajectory for the sector.
The bill talks of setting up a microfinance development fund constituted by the RBI to provide loans, grants, seed capital or any other financial assistance to any MFI. The fund is expected to enhance funding opportunity and augment the flow of credit to the sector. It proposes allowing MFIs to raise deposits, which could be a lifesaver for the sector.
Whatever we faced in the last 2 years, that is if one bank has said and all banks have been stopped the lending, so there is no alternative source of funding, so that the small, medium and big MFIs all are suffer on that. So in this bill has the option to collect the thrift from the borrower. So if that option was there, so there is an alternative source of funding will get microfinance institution.
That's not all. The bill proposes to permit MFIs to remit funds and provide insurance or any other services that may be specified by the RBI. And this could be a win-win move for both the borrower and the service provider.
I think that a lot of the critique of either farmer suicides, the cyclical downturn that we witness in the macroeconomy and its consequent impact on the poor households are because of factors outside the orbit of the poor household. So insurance becomes an extremely important product that has to be developed. Unfortunately, very little products are there which are meant directly for the poor. And saving services, because many of them would actually like to build assets that will see them through either sickness, illness or any other downturn that they might have in the personal household.
This could directly have an impact on the cost of borrowing of MFIs and on interest rates too.
The new microfinance bill says the MFIs will be possibly allowed to mobilize thrift and savings from members. When it comes through, we might see a handful of well-capitalized good MFIs being able to provide even saving services to people. But that's a bit farther away, it's not something immediate.
That's the bad news, because the MFI bill itself has been in the making for several years. In 2007, the government proposed the first microfinance bill, which spoke of NABARD and state governments jointly regulating the sector. To the industry's relief, the draft lapsed in 2009, even though the bill was tabled in the parliament. The government needs to act fast if it does not want the Microfinance Bill 2011 to meet a similar fate. And the matter is urgent because over 300 million lives and 4,000 micro-lending institutions are waiting for a change.
With the government reining in MFIs, is it time to look outside the sector for options to address the problem of financial inclusion of the poor? Find out after the short break. Don't go away.